All right, what's up, guys? So we're going to do a video here on setting up our own ARK server for Ascended, the new release, ARK Survival Ascended. And it's going to be very similar to the other ARK server that I configured. This is going to be a standalone server running on Ubuntu. It's not going to be a Docker container like a lot of other people have examples of. I wanted something that just ran as a dedicated Linux server with one instance of the ARK server running on it. So this is a good idea if you're just going to do something at home and you don't want to set up Docker, try to figure out how to use Docker Compose or any of those kind of Docker images. So we're just going to install ARK Server in Linux using Steam command, and then we're going to run it using Proton, which is a Steam-built fork and bundle of the Wine, which is Windows on Linux. So let's get started. So it's going to be very similar, again, to what I did last time. Actually, let me just cover the server specs really quick. So the server specs that I'm doing for this demo and for my home server that I run is I'm doing 4 vCPU, so actually 2 sockets with 2 cores is how I set it up. You need at least 100 gigs of disk because the install is pretty big. It's like 32 gigs. But even if you had more than 32 gigs free, which is what happened in my case, it still didn't finish the install. It like ran out of space, and so I'm guessing that's a cache or something during the install part. So I just went to 100 gigs and just gave it more space. And then I would say you would want at least 24 gigs of RAM for the virtual machine. I did it at 16, and it was choking a little bit there when I started it up because it was using too much RAM, and I was getting heavy CPU utilization on K-swap or memory swap. So my recommendation is at least 24 gigs. I'm running 32. Seems to run pretty good with 32. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, so the first step is we want to get in as root here because a lot of the actions we're going to do is going to be at the root level. And then obviously we want to do, this is, by the way, this is a fresh install of Ubuntu 24.04.1. So I haven't done any of the updates or any of the upgrades or anything like that. So we're going to go ahead and do that initial piece right now. It'll download a bunch of updates, install them, should be pretty quick. Maybe it's not as quick as I thought. All right, it's a good thing I paused it there because it did take quite a while to go through all the install for the updates and stuff like that. So the next thing we're going to do is add an additional repository called the Multiverse repository because we want to install Steam command from there. And then we want to make sure that we add 32-bit, which I know that sounds crazy, but D package add architecture i386. And I believe that's what's required for this Steam command install. So we'll go ahead and do that. I had a command here that I had done for my previous ARK server. I don't think it's needed anymore. I'm just going to skip it and go straight to the Steam command here. And it might actually install it as well, or at least some of the required. I didn't validate this list 100%. lib32gcc, so lib32gcc, so I guess it's right there. No, that's not 32 though. Whatever. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and just install Steam command. You got to agree to the license. And then just for fun, we'll go ahead and try to run this one afterwards. And I think it'll say there's nothing there. And that's fine. It will work just fine without it on my server. So I'll go ahead and update the guide and get rid of this. All right, the next thing I want to do is I want to edit some file system maximums. So we're going to go ahead and put a line in here for file max 100,000, and then we'll go ahead and run this to adjust that. There you can see it took it, and then we're going to edit some security limits as well. Let's see, where do I want to put them? I'm going to just stick them right here. Say no soft, no file 100. I don't know exactly what that does, honestly, but I know it's something to do with how many open files I think you can have or something like that. So it definitely helped a lot in performance with my ARK server evolved. So I just left it in there for this one. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a Steam user. I want to run the game under a Steam user instead of as root or any other user. So it kind of just, the context is under a specific user for this game. So if something happened, I don't know, if somebody exploited the Steam user is not going to be root, has no admin permissions. So the only thing they'd be able to do is whatever Steam's permitted to do, which is work in its own folder or screw up your ARK server or something like that. So let's go ahead and create that Steam user, and we're going to switch to Steam. So su space dash space Steam. So now I'm logged in as Steam essentially, and I want to create a Steam command link, because Steam gets installed under user game Steam command. And so now that I created a link, you can see that link is right here in the Steam command. So we're going to go ahead and run that, and it's going to install the ARK. Oops, I guess I need to actually copy the command. It's going to install the ARK Survival Ascended Server, which for Windows, which is 2430930. That's the app ID in Steam. And I'm going to install to the home Steam ARK Server folder. And this actually takes quite some time, so I'm going to end up pausing this while it goes, because it's like 32 gigs, I think, is what I said earlier. And you can see, so it's going to do an update, I guess, for the Steam Bootstrapper, I guess is what it's doing. I'm not sure there. That's not the whole game, though. The next one you'll see is going to, when it tries to pre-allocate space for the actual game itself. So here any second it'll do it. And give it a moment. Reconfiguring. There it is. Oh, I guess it didn't pre-allocate, which I guess is okay. Last time I swear it said pre-allocating space, but the point I was trying to get at is this right here. And that is 18725. So that's 31,614,000,000. So it's 31.6 gigs. So it's going to take some time. As you can see, it's only 3% done. So I'm going to pause the video so you don't have to watch this. All right, so I paused it for quite some time. That probably took, I don't even know, 40 minutes, I think, to run through that. So it installed it. Everything's done, completed, validated, I guess. It did some verification. It says it's successfully installed, but look at this. The verification stopped at 6.32. Okay, whatever. We can try running again and see if it's any different response. Seems to me like it failed after a certain amount of time. So let's get it through the verification again, and I'll come back as soon as it's done. All right, we're back again. So the verification says that it's verified the install all the way to the end. It says fully installed. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and exit out of the Steam user, and we're going to install something called Proton. So I mentioned this earlier in the video. What it is, it's essentially a refined version of Wine, and it's built by Steam. And we're going to actually install something that's apparently a more refined version. It's by a guy, Glorious Egg Roll. And I did a little bit of research on it. It seems to be trustworthy. I'm not going to make 100% verification on that. It's if you don't feel comfortable using it, you can try to get away with using the other Proton, but you'll have to download the source and then build it on yours. And so it's not something that you can just download like a pre-compiled version of it. You have to actually build it. So I didn't want to do that. It seemed like this was legit. I mean, all the source code's on github.com, so it's likely it's going to be okay. But, you know, you never know. So anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyways. So we're going to go ahead and download this gzip file. And I'm going to install into opt Proton as soon as it's done downloading here. I'll pause it. All right, so it is done downloading. Now we're going to go ahead and create a folder called opt Proton. The dash P just means create it. If opt doesn't already exist, it'll create it, the whole structure. But that, obviously, opt, I think, is already there. So now let's go ahead and extract it. I'm running these commands from the same location that I downloaded. It's going to output the Proton zip file into opt Proton. So it doesn't take super long to do it. But you can see that it's a bunch of Windows stuff, right? So Proton is the Wine emulator, a refined version again. And okay, so now if we did a list of opt Proton, you can see that it extracted into GE Proton 922, which is fine. We're going to go ahead and create two folders, which I think are directories. I think these are already there. Honestly, I know that one is. This one is not. Prefixes. The dash P again, just in case the rest of this start didn't exist, it'll create the entire structure. So like for the .local, I didn't know which level it was there, so we just went ahead and created all of it. And then we're going to go ahead and copy some prefixes. So these are like some base OS, emulated OS, Windows emulated OS stuff. And so when we run the ARK server, I didn't want to use the default prefix. I'm not entirely sure why you'd have to do this, minus the fact that one, I wanted my own copy of them, and then two, I wanted those files to be accessible from the Steam user. And I didn't test this. Maybe they are accessible from the Steam user. It doesn't need to do anything with them, but I thought I'd just copy them into the ARK server prefixes folder, just so that if it did want to modify anything in that folder, it can. So we'll go ahead and copy that. The -r just means recursive. So basically take everything out of this prefix folder, including directories, subdirectories, and copy it into prefixes. And so we'll go ahead and do that. And we'll say, let's just go look at it really quick. Home Steam ARK server prefixes, and you'll see it's got, you know, DOS C drive, DOS devices, some registry, user and system registry, common things in the Windows world. But you can see these are all root, right? Because we're running as root. So the last command I wanted to do was I want to take everything that's under home Steam and make sure that with recursive, that Steam user, Steam group owns all those files. So we'll go ahead and run that, and you can see if I ls this again, you can see everything's owned by Steam. Perfect. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is create an ARK service. So it's the daemon, the system daemon that's going to run for ARK. And so we'll go ahead and edit this file. It's going to be an empty file out of the gate because it's the first time we've created it. So I've written out this whole service here. Very similar again to the way that the ARK Survival Evolved was, with some minor differences. A couple is I learned from a couple different sources about these environment variables. So we're going to set some environment variables. This is for Proton. And this is just basically saying where we installed the local share Steam, because I guess there's a variant there. Like sometimes it goes into tilde Steam and other times it goes into tilde.local share Steam. So I'm just forcing it to one folder. And then this one is the prefixes we just copied. That's where the compatibility data resides. And then the exec start runs Proton binary run, and then the exe, the Windows exe for ARK Server Ascended. And then I'm picking the center for the map, and the center WP, that's the map name. And then the session name is just stop it some more. You can change this to whatever you want it to be. If you started this server without changing this first and later you wanted to change it, you're also going to need to edit the game user settings ini to update the session name there as well, I believe. But we're going to go ahead and cancel right quit on this. Oh, the working directory, right? The working directory is where we installed ARK Server, and it's the Win64 binaries. Because remember, this is a Windows. They didn't have a Linux binary for the ARK Server, so you have to do the emulation for Windows, which is why we're doing the Proton stuff. Okay, so now that we've got that there, the other thing I wanted to show you guys before we go ahead and do a reload and a start of the ARK service, we're going to go ahead and edit the game settings ini file. And, whoa, oh, guess I should have known that. So the first thing we need to do, I guess, is start the game server. So I'll fix that. So let's reload the daemon so that it understands that we have a new ARK service. And then I'm going to go ahead and start this so at least it generates a base. Oops. Oh my gosh. Got to copy. Can't just, there we go. That way it at least has a base game user settings.ini, because there's a lot of stuff in there that I wouldn't be able to just type it. We'd have to come up with some default. Okay, so basically it's running, active, looks good. It says the update, because every time it runs, it does an update, says that's good. Proton upgrading prefix from none to 922. I don't know why, but whatever. Okay, so now I think we've got that game user settings. So I'm just go ahead and edit that. So that's this command here. So we're going to VI the game user settings. There you go. So now you got a bunch of stuff in here. And what I like to edit, well, quick just recap here. So if you change the session name and after you started it for the first time, here's your session name under session settings. Okay. But that said, up here at the top under the server settings heading, I like to add a bunch of different things. You guys can do whatever you want here. But basically what I'm doing is setting the server password. These are you have to do these unless you want your server wide open and no admin password. That's crazy. So I would recommend setting server password and server admin password. Change it to whatever you want it to be. Don't just use these defaults that I put in there. And then I've got a couple things that I like to do. Like I hate it because I hate always being thirsty or hungry. So I always set the food and water drain to slow. I set the harvest mount multiplier higher, so that means like when you're breaking trees and rocks and stuff or whatever, you get 4 times the normal. I think it's more fun for me. I don't want to go harvest a million trees to build some stuff. Like, you get 4 times the resources. And then the taming speed multiplier, I like this a lot because I don't want to sit around for 10 hours taming something, or I guess more accurately, an hour taming something. So I put a taming multiplier by 8 times. Like, I don't want it to take forever. So we would just take these lines here. You can copy them like that. Go down here as an example, insert it there, and we'll paste it right there at the bottom of the server settings. So we got all those settings now. So go ahead and hit escape, right quit. And then the other one I wanted to do is the game, same location, but there's another one called game.ini. We're going to go ahead and edit that one, blank file, and that's okay. What I want to do is put in this script shooter game mode heading, and we're going to copy all of this. And I'll explain this stuff in a second. Let's paste it in there. So the NPC replacements, this I got from my server Evolved. I don't know if this, or ARK Server Evolved, I don't know if this applies to Ascended. I don't personally like the alpha characters. Like, I hate it when an alpha raptor shows up and kills all of your pets, including your Rex and everything else, because he's got such absurd number of health. Like, let's be at least a little bit realistic. I don't know. Like, a big old dinosaur with big chompers can't just eat the raptor. Anyhow, I'm not a fan of the alpha stuff. You can't tame them. They're super deadly. They're really tough. They come in and they destroy everything. So for the Evolved server, I did a replacement of the Mega Raptor, Carno, and Rex, and I just replaced them to nothing. So I believe it just deletes them. They don't spawn. And then I would say, maybe more importantly, I've got speed leveling and flying speed leveling, because I like to level up the movement speed of characters, including my character and my pets. And then also I've got structure placement collision, disabling that because I hate it when it's got collisions. Just let me put the stupid stuff down. Don't worry about collisions as best as you can. And then the fall damage multiplier, I like to put this in there. I don't like when I fall off a small little cliff and it kills me, so I kind of just cut that in half and put a 0.4 there. So we'll go ahead and save these. And now I've got both of those files done. So now what I want to do is I actually want to restart the ARK server. So if we say, I guess I could have just said restart. Stop. And then we'll go start. And I think that's basically it. So let me see. What was I doing? So let's do like a journal CTL unit ARK. And you can see that looks good. I want a status on this. And it's active and running. So at this point, everything should be up and going. Like, I am literally playing on an ARK server that uses this exact build step. The only thing that you need to do next, and I would be cautious of these kinds of things because you're exposing your stuff internally onto the internet, but you're going to need to do port forwarding or NATing, whatever you want to call it, but essentially it's a network address translation or port address translation and you're exposing to the internet port 7777, so 7777, and 27015, 27015. So I listed them here. You need to expose both of these to just your ARK server on your router. Now, I can't really help you with that because there's like a bazillion different router types, but I think on most routers they call it port forwarding. Just be cautious of it. Don't open everything up. Just open those ports, and only to that server. And if you want to be really protective, kind of like what I did, and this is, maybe I should do a video on this because it's pretty advanced, but I took and I segmented out all my game servers. So if I expose a game server like an ARK server, it's actually an entirely different VLAN, different subnet. It's protected behind pfSense firewall. It's, I'm not saying nothing's bulletproof, right? But it's just a little bit extra level of protection so that all the game servers are in their own subnet and they don't have any communication with other network segments in my environment. So that's always a good idea. But again, if you're exposing stuff like that to the internet, just be cautious because you have a port that's open. Somebody might do a port scan on your stuff and they might find out that you have 777 exposed or 27015 exposed, and they'll go in and they'll try to exploit something. Again, it's difficult to know what's exploitable. A lot of stuff is zero-day attacks, and a zero-day basically just means that nobody knows anything about it. So anyhow, good luck. Hope this video was helpful for you getting ARK Server up and running, the ARK Server Ascended, using Proton, the Windows version on a Linux box. And I hope this was useful for you guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.